Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Damien with Rosieside Farm. Time for our 7B, Zone 7B market garden update. It's actually not time for it. We did one 4 days ago, but we went out of town for a couple of days, came back. So we have some interesting things going on in the garden, some good, some bad. So we're going to fill you in right now. When we were away, we've got a ton of rain. That's a bucket that was left out. Pretty big bucket. You see how much water collected in there. But this is one of our successions of tomatoes that has grown extremely well despite the shade. And it's time to start cleaning this up and getting it tied up to our trellis before we have more of the mess you're about to see here in a minute with our tomatoes. And these were Brandywines, and I believe some green zebras at the end. It could be something else stuck in there. Our squash zucchini tomatillo patch is approaching its end. I've ripped out a bunch of plants. We've got some squash growing here, some yellow crookneck squash. Some more over here still flowering, but we have plants that need to come out of the ground. You see they're yellowing. Starting to get some pressure from vine borers, squash bugs, you name it. Same stuff that always happens with squash and zucchini. But I actually just put some in the ground today. So, there's more on the way. Here was one of our later successions of tomatoes that has the ground cherries next to it. That is just a total mess. It's one where I put the trellis higher in the air, waiting for the tomatoes to grow up to the trellis. And in that time, they grew out, not that up, and then not keeping the best tabs on it. Kind of got in a position where it's too late to trellis real well. But these are probably the pineapple or Carolina Golds. They're ready to pick almost. So those will be for sale at the farmer's market. And they're just, all of them are starting to get that little hue of color, which will tell you that, ripe tomatoes are coming. So when we went away, we had a ton of rain, ton of storms, and some damage. So some stuff that was tied up broke. So this whole thing's broke here. So I'm just gonna get it out of here. And look at all those tomatoes. But those will be green tomatoes at the market this coming weekend. Stick that over there, and that might actually help open this up a little bit, because it's a mess over here. Complete mess. But things are growing, things are producing. So today, my goal is to come out here and tie some things up. The few peppers we stuck over here, just kind of jamming them in where they fit. Got a little pepper on there, so they'll be producing here, before too long. Our latest succession of tomatoes, they're going to be small. They're not going to be producing for quite some time. Look at this weed growing out of that little hole. These are Brandywines, Black Crims, and a few white eggplants that didn't sell at the market as starts, and a few pepper plants that didn't sell at the market as starts. Which brings us to our first row of tomatoes and our trellis. Our trellis did not last the storm. It got completely knocked down. These white tomatoes, gosh, they're starting to turn. Look at the size of this tomato. I mean, it's got to be a 2-pound tomato. I mean, some of them don't look all that hot, with some scarring, but they'll taste just fine. So those will probably be for our consumption. But I had to prop this trellis up because we came and it was completely fallen over the pepper plants. And these beefsteaks, gosh, that one doesn't look all that good. I'm probably gonna pick that today, get it out of there. But when the trellis fell down, some of the branches that were tied up either broke off, the strings broke, whatever. We must have had a heck of a storm here. And they're falling over on our pepper plants. So I've got to do my best to clean this up without harming the plants. If not, I just got to let it grow crazy and do the best I can. Here, white eggplant, we've got them growing, not ready to be picked yet. And more of the jungle of tomatoes. These cheap steaks, which are, it's going to be the last year for anything like that. There's another branch that's broken from the storm. So those will be green tomatoes at the market this week. The eggplant, we've got another eggplant growing. The jalapenos, prolific as always. We sold some at the market last week. We'll have them again this week. And we have actually, look at this, red tomatoes. I mean, they're ready to pick and put in a sandwich right now. Coming down, these are our, we have a couple purple eggplants there. Get the eggplant growing. But there are tomatoes that are ready to pick right now. Today is Monday. So our market's on Saturday and Sunday. So we'll have some baskets of tomatoes to sell. Here we go. Here's one of the broken trellises, but with a perfectly fine tomato on it. Coming over to our second row of tomatoes that we planted. May have been planted on the same day. I'm not quite sure. Don't remember. But our black crims are ripening, and they seem to be the first to ripen this year. Massive, massive pile of weeds. They were our first to ripen this year. So next year I've got to plant some, I think they're called early girls, which are like 60 days of maturity, just to have tomatoes to start out the market before all the kind of more popular heirlooms come in. These are what we call the fat red tomatoes. Still all green. They were very, very small when we put them in, like tiny, if you go back to the first video. And then the row of nonsense, which I thought was all cherry tomatoes, grape tomatoes. But the first four of these were those pink red tomatoes. And there, as you can see down there, they're ripening. We've got some ripe ones. So we won't have a ton of tomatoes at the market, but we'll have some. Get people used to coming to the booth. So these yellow currant tomatoes, which I will grow again, I will grow one plant. But we have little tomatoes everywhere. I'll try to pick some of those today. We can eat them. I have no problem selling them at the market either. But all this stuff, gosh, needs to be tied up. So that's the good and bad of going away. You go away, you come back, and when you see a garden every day, you don't always see the growth. When you go away for a few days, come back, start to see it. Our Lady Bells, which we picked a bunch of peppers off of, and this line of cucumbers, we have one dead plant. Some aren't looking all that hot, but they're producing cucumbers. And as always, there's a cucumber that I missed. And we're gonna let the pigs have this treat. They're always out when I'm picking. But these weeds that come through the holes, I can't imagine not having this weed block and what it would be out here. But we'll have cucumbers. It's always an early crop at the market, so we'll have a few baskets of those to sell as well. Coming to our kind of miscellaneous squash row. Grew some patty pans, green patty pans, which are coming in pretty well. First time we ever grew them. So we'll stick a few of those in the basket just to give us a little bit of variety. Pig's waiting for a snack. And I just stuck in a bunch of regular old squash and zucchini over here. So let them get going on another succession of squash. They grow quick and we'll have them before you know it. Through that cucumber over here, I'm not quite sure it got in. But with all that rain, the grass has grown up so much. As you can tell here by our line of volunteer tomatoes and weeds and grass, which I'm not cleaning it up. I'll clean it up as needed. Our most recent succession of cucumbers, they're about on their way. They're about to start producing. The miscellaneous eggplant and peppers, the habaneros that we stuck in, again, plant starts that just didn't sell. Into our beans. Beans are growing like crazy. They're a bushing bean. Mixed in with some volunteer tomatoes, mixed in with some marigolds, and mixed in with cucumbers, which I haven't checked today yet, but I bet you there's some harvestable cucumbers on here today, because before we left, looked like there would be. Yeah, there's a cucumber right here. Tomorrow that cucumber will be massive. And I don't, there's another one down there. I don't mind these marigolds in here, and we planted these marigolds because I was trying to get away from some tomatoes near these cucumbers. So I'd read they're not supposed to be grown next to each other companion-wise, but just want to space them out a little bit. And I'll have more flowers in here next year. I kind of like having them around. Our sea of tomatillos, and I've got to do a little research. I don't know when tomatillos are ready to be picked. So right now they're fairly small, but I don't know how big they get. But I'm feeling the fruit inside. It's pretty small, so I don't think it's yet. A couple white eggplants before our okra. And our okra, gosh, I picked a bunch before we left, cut it up, put it in the freezer. And there's a whole bunch ready to be picked now. So okra isn't a huge seller at the farmer's market, but it does give us some variety. It's interesting to look at, so it doesn't hurt us to have those varieties in our booth. So thanks for checking us out after the storm. Today, it's all about kind of cleaning up after the storm, getting the trellises back up, doing what I can for what fell over, and going from there. So we'll have a update after our Sunday farmers market next week. Thanks for checking us out. See you.